that therefore in spiritual life, vital attraction or sex attraction has a place. That should be known, very well understood. That in spiritual life, vital attraction and sex attraction has no place. There is a room for relationship and a mutual effort at spiritual life in the growth towards the spirit. And in that, 2, 3, 4, 20 people can join. Men and women also can join. They can also mutually join. But it is clearly understood that it should be something that is completely free from vital and sex attraction, because otherwise the very purpose of spiritual life would be foiled. You see that about that, Mother and Sherunda were categorical, and all old Indian schools are also categorical. I mean that the affirmation of relation is one, and acceptance of attraction of vital or sex life is quite another thing, because that would drag in the elements of all elements of present relationship, which is not based on the truth. I mean, present relationship between sexes is a continuation of animal life, which is quite necessary in a certain way. I don't say that it is therefore bad or sinful. That's not the point. Point is that it doesn't promote spiritual life. It doesn't make for spiritual progress, and therefore it would be a temporary bar, if not a permanent handicap. Therefore, in spiritual life, it is clearly understood that attraction of vital attraction or sex attraction should be completely obviated, and a relation must be based upon another plane, higher plane of life. You see, a plane of consciousness, either a plane of effort or plane of intellectuality, plane of art or plane of anything else. You see, mainly when they join in a place like the ashram, it is to realize the spiritual truth that they join together. You see.
They don't marry then, huh?
No, no. And if they marry, they understand why they marry. I mean, marriage is that it is not meant for any social purpose. I mean, it is not for, because social marriage is really from the point of view of spirituality are not marriages. They would say it's not marriage, it's a relation, and it's a good thing. Sometimes it helps people to evolve. It is not a
both Mother and Aurobindo had children, didn't they?
No, Sherunda had no child.
Didn't they?
No, Mother had a son. She has a son. Yes.
But that was before they.
Yes, yes. That was before the spiritual life was taken entirely.
Well, the thing
so that is what I wanted to just make a little clearance, because otherwise it would be under the impression that in spiritual life ordinary attraction had a place. Well, it has no place. It must be clear. that doesn't mean that it's bad. No, but if you go in for spiritual life, you have to overcome that attraction, reject it, and base the relation, if at all there is a relation, on another basis.
And that basis does not involve the physical.
No, physical has a place in it.
But in not that relationship yes, up here, yes, is the physical involved also?
Yes, physical relationship is on all planes, but when it is based on some higher principle, the physical can participate in it. You see, because in anything that happens to the consciousness, the physical is always participant. When you get angry, the anger travels right up to the physical system, you see. So that a state of consciousness, peace, when you attain peace, the vibration of peace will come down to your body. The body also, nerves and all the cells and everybody participate partly. I don't say altogether completely and at once and immediately, but ultimately when you really succeed in establishing peace in your consciousness, certainly it percolates to the nervous and the physical system. It should. So in the same way, all vibration of consciousness will have a repercussion on the physical. In fact, when you bow down to somebody, for instance, you bow down with the body, but it's only a representation or a material, action of an inner attitude. It's not attitude of surrender. That is how body participates in the movement. What I am pointing out is that body is not something to be excluded because it is body. That is an old idea that body should be specially disqualified, which is also not true. Body has a place, and that place it has to find out. You see, it is an art, and it's a thing to learn by learning and experimenting and going through. It is not a set science in which you can lay down hard and fast rules, because it's a question of consciousness.
Well, the question I wanted to ask, if everyone's satisfied that this question is answered. I read it last night in Evening Talks. It was toward the back of the book as I was going in fine, where Aurobindo says, in regard to the Indian people, he said the Indian people had no character.
Yes.
And what did he mean by that?
Well, he meant,
I think he said we start something one day and then do something next day.
That is referring to politics, yes. Indian political set. It refers to political leadership of India, particularly at the time when the talk took place. And
well, that's why I asked it this morning about the national character. Yes. It's because they had not yet formed.
Yes, no, because politics to them was new and also not a field in which they had experience. And then they committed all the faults of Western politicians without their good points. Because politics has a corrupt side, as everybody knows. I mean, there is a dirty politics and correct and good politics. Politics is not bad as politics, but in politics you can have anything from the lowest to the highest. And they try to, get the thing by the wrong end. Imitating all the, the worst points of the Western political life.
And that's bad.
Yes, that is what he was referring to. Of course, this declaration, that's why I gave a note in the Evening Talks preface, that these are declarations not made as permanent, enunciation of his opinion.
Well, of course, you see, I still read the book from the back to the front. This Chinese buzz still shows.
My introduction, if you read, you will see I have made a point clear that nobody should read what he writes here as if he was expressing opinion on institution, person, or situation, as if it was a permanent declaration of his opinion. That is not so. He was talking homely with his disciples and not with a sense of responsibility. So he was just talking lightly. And what he talks refers to the man, then to the atmosphere, and little bit to the thing outside. He is not serious about that. He is only serious about setting right the mind of the disciples. That's all. His main purpose is not to convey some new idea about situation, but to make the disciple think along correct lines. So, you vary his opinion. Today he would be for one thing, and the same thing he would do next day he would be against. If he finds that the disciple is leaning wrongly on the other side, you see. He just wanted to point out the limitation of mind, in fact. Very often he would take up, if somebody took up one position, he would try to show how the other position was equally rational. And if the other position taken, he would show the other position, how it is rational. To show that mind is a limited instrument, shouldn't depend entirely on mind.
Wonderful training. What wonderful training.
Yes.
You all had to be sharp.
Well, that's what I had to tell this English fellow when I was to England. The BBC was telling me, and I said, I remained 40 years with him. So even if a stone remains 40 years, he would become something else in stone.
Spiders and flies and mosquitoes.
Well, he has explained that in his Life Divine. I don't know.
I thought so.
He has. Well, partly as explained as an annexy of the vital life.
Yes.
The vital being, when it got as firmly established in the inconscience, then, just as I was telling him when we were talking at dinner time, that just as when water stagnates, then byproducts from water which are not very healthy also come into being. In the same way, in the lower vital creation and from the inconscient, when the vital first came into existence, the life took a turn as if basing itself not on anything spiritual, but on the pure vital, and try to. There are stories in the Indian Puranas in which certain demons, certain rishis have tried to create a world, if you remember. Vishwamitra was trying to create another world, you remember? Yes. Like that, that is a sort of an indication that it is possible to project a world not based upon the truth consciousness, but on the product of the truth consciousness, the vital life. You see, you can take the vital belt and take the vital bet as a starting point and create something. Now, that not having any divine support behind it naturally still has an indirect support of the divine, because the vital is divinely supported, is it not? The vital has a divine support behind it. Well, taking that indirect support, you can project a world which is bizarre or harmful, or, right up to the Titan and the Asuras, you see. It can go up to that anti divinity, it can go up to anti divine consciousness.
Will they become divine?
Well, most probably they will have to either liquidate it, perhaps life can come down upon it because they are not helpful to life. So much of it will be wiped out by life itself, I think.
So where do you draw the line? What about ants that get in people's homes? Is it right to destroy that kind
Of
of life?
course, they are destroying without consulting anyone, I think.
No, I mean, when people, put ant paste down or something, is it right to, if you believe in reverence for life, in other words, where you draw the line as to where you shouldn't be reverent for life?
Well, that is Jaina's idea, reverence for all life.
Right. Now, where
Yes.
do you draw the line?
You-
Where can you distinguish?
Well, one has to use his discretion, take the time and the progress of man into consideration also. And she has to take there is no absolute rule about, the sacredness of life, because after all, life is from one. Now, go back to metaphysics, then you are not destroying life.
Only the form.
Metaphysically, you are not destroying life.
Only the form.
Yes, that's all. So the one truth is manifesting itself, and all forms of life are its expression. If one form, does something to the other, it's one reality that is dealing with one form of its own self, isn't it? So,
By that
so in a
reasoning-
condition of evolution, you have to see whether this evolution or consciousness here evolving stands to gain by dealing in a certain way with a certain form of life, human or non-human, it doesn't matter. Even with human life, you might have to deal in the same way. In fact, man has been doing it in war. Man has been doing it, and man is not hesitating. He hesitates less in killing the flies, but not hesitating killing a man. So, and nations have been supporting that program.
But
It's
by
not
that
as if it is
reasoning,
done in private. You see, this discussion we are having because we are like that, but as citizens, we are contributing to the maintenance of the army, which means killing man.
By that reasoning, a lot of persons will have taken it upon themselves to maybe kill another person, saying, well, it's in the interest of better harmony with other things. Or,
That's so communists say that. Communists say
probably
that.
so, but a lot of others, when they
Yes.
go out and murder somebody, they say, well,
Yes, yes. That's why social order or law and order is imposed in a national state, just to keep that in check, that nobody can take the law in his hand in a collectivity, because then collective life is impossible. Social life is impossible if everyone tried to behave and try to sit in judgment, so to say, and decide what he thinks right, and so on. That's why a national government or social life organizes itself into a system of law and order. And it says if there is any difference between two people or two groups, well, somebody who is state or somebody who represents the government or all will come down and decide. You can't decide, because otherwise social life is impossible.
then the government says they have the right to, for capital punishment, like to punish one
Yeah,
man with
yes,
one
yeah.
man's crime by taking his life.
Yes.
And then they say that is all right, and that is right to do.
Yes. Well, now, if you awaken the conscience of the collectivity and say that we don't want capital punishment because man's doing some crime which deserves him the capital punishment, might be due to the fault of society. That is the logic, you see, that if a man does something, either commits a theft or robbery or murder, is not society to some extent responsible for what he does? If that is so, why should society take such a revenge upon him? Because the crime is due to its own imperfection, you see, in its own injustice. So that is how one can awaken the conscience of the people to the sacredness of human life at any rate. I mean, apart from other lives, at least human life could be regarded as sacred, that a man must be given a chance to improve himself. Even if he has committed a fault or a crime, well, it is not final and it should not be taken so much as to deserve the capital punishment. He should be given a chance to improve himself, make his life useful.
Redeem it.
Yes. In fact, there are in every country, I think there are associations that promote the life of the criminals after re-establishing them in society or teaching them a profession or to find them a place in life and so on. There are societies, at least I know that they are in India like that. Jail committee. There are jail committees that go and visit the jail, or preachers who go and talk to them, or doctors and so on, who volunteer services like that. And the committee sits when he comes out. They try to see where is he going, what is he going to do. Does he require money to settle himself? Then advance a loan or give a grant, something like that, so that he may get into a normal way of life, which is quite possible. In fact, dealing with the criminals and the children is a sign of awakening of human consciousness. In every country, there is a reconsideration and humane treatment is being given out to people who are considered till 20 years back, antisocial and some sort of as if they were not human. That was the way in which they were being looked upon. And now, the way in which they are considered shows the awakening of consciousness of man. This is quite a good sign.
Well, how is the way to handle some of these juveniles now? Is there what can society do with them? These kids that carry switchblade knives, and almost every time you pick up the paper, there's something about it. I live in an isolated enough area that doesn't affect me, but it does. Judith, there's certain areas she can't take her center into because they're not safe. And just a few blocks from Charteris, a girl was attacked. What can society do?
No, there are in England, juvenile offenders, associations and committees. Now, they are voluntary associations, aided sometimes by government or sometimes by the magistracy. A man is appointed or a woman is appointed magistrate with a power, but they don't do anything. They only go and meet the person, meet the parents, meet the, find out from diary of the police or the report of neighbors who are the people. Then they try to find out what he's doing, and then go to the parents, go to the relations, and also tackle the man himself, boy or a young man or woman, whoever he is, and try to see and reason out that to make him understand rather than to threaten, you see. And,
well, my point was, if those are remedial things, but what are we as a nation, wherein are we not meeting the problem before the problem develops? That was my point.
Well, that you can't, it's due to the parents, you can't help it.
Yeah, but the parents were children once of their parents. Where do you start?
Make the parents responsible for their own kids and you get to the bottom of the story. That's what you gotta do.
There's a very good book about that. So I believe it's called Man the Bridge. I can find out the exact title.
Side our point. It's all,
Yeah.
it's all.
Well, it really wasn't decided for this reason. It has an association for the effect that increasingly the nervous system, the nervous people, the United States nerves, what is this in our philosophy? Is there a relation? To me, there is a relationship. Something we're not thinking straight, we're not believing straight, or our nerves wouldn't be so raw. What's wrong? Philosophy, the way we look at life?
No, probably too much of haste and mechanical, dealing with too much of machines and haste of life more than anything else.
Really?
Well, it's partly to do with the modern generation rebelling against old forms and practices, but rebelling in destructive ways many times. Their hatreds develop to a point where they take it out in vengeful acts against anyone that comes along sometimes. But it's basically due to the signs and times what they're going through.
This book claimed that it was sort of a frustration.
Frustrations.
More times, and children don't have the inner faith, and that is frustrated, and they look out and out and out into outer space. I mean, they go on and on for adventure and the fulfillment and so forth.
Thrills.
Thrills and so forth.
The parents don't have enough imagination, or the teachers, to give them adequate, so
So all kinds of things. They are promoting some sort of things where they can. But a government initiative is always partial in this respect. Can't expect government to.
Center.
Uh,
When you speak of the psychic center,
yes,
and you
yes,
say the soul,
yes,
soul is the seat.
yes.
It has a vital connection with the psychic center.
Mm.
I know you've gone over that very exhaustively and fully, but it seems to me that there are so many fine gradations of meaning in that connection between the soul and the psychic center, and the soul influencing the mind and the vital being and the lower physical.
Yes.
That it seems to me that there are more questions come up than can be answered, when you think about it.
No, it is quite. In one sense, you see, if you use your imagination a little, it's not so difficult to put the psychic center behind the outward nature, outward turn nature. Really, all nature is not outward, but major portion of man's conscious living is turned outward. Consciousness looks out, as the Upanishad says. You see, it says that the self-existent has put the doors of the window looking out. That is the translation in one of the Upanishads. I am giving you literal translation. That the self-existent has put the doors of his window looking out. Therefore, the soul of man always looks out. Very rare, 1 in 100, withdraws his look from outside to inside. And then he may find the truth inside, you see. And that is way it is only saying that the greater portion of psychological activity of man is turned outward through his senses and through all the instruments that are at his disposal: mind, emotion, vital and nervous system, and all the senses. This acts on an egocentric basis, all this outward turn mechanism. It is egocentric. There is an ego center which is like a, Sherndo calls it a linchpin of all the psychological activities of man, ego. So mind is also tied down the ego and say I. There is an emotional activity, also there is an I. In the vital activities, there is an I. I is the linchpin in which all these activities of the outward turn nature are centered. And that man calls his personality. Mental personality, vital personality, emotional personality, human personality. It is egoistic personality. Mind, ego in the mind, ego in the vital, ego in the emotion, and so on. But this ego is not altogether useless or always unnecessary. It is necessary to coordinate. If you receive the sensation without some coordination, you will not be able to make head or tail out of it, is it not? So it is good that there is some coordinating agency called the ego, or operating as the ego, so as to put the knowledge in a rough way, make it available as a rough sort of material to deal with life, to understand, to grow, to make your way in life. It is good. Now this egocentric consciousness is really a mistranslation or a deformation of that psychic being. You see, really speaking,
Yes.
it's a wrong representation in the nature part. So what one has to do is that whenever either an occasion comes, or a knock or a shock comes, or the egocentric movement brings about a reaction, what one has to do is to refer to the true center. True center, and find out what that would say. This is quite within the province of mind or emotional being or vital being. See, man generally tries to attain something. When he does not attain, he gets depressed. And why I was wanting it? And should I have wanted that thing? Then if he puts that into his inner being and refers, then he might say that probably there was no reason why I should have wanted it at all. There is no frustration after that. he realizes that he was acting under what we call ignorance. He can ask, supposing my impulse had been satisfied, what would have happened? If I had the thing I wanted, or if I had the experience I was seeking, what would happen? Then he would understand that that would not have been the end of the matter, end of the trouble. He would know that his not having it is a cause of his suffering or trouble or depression, isn't it? Frustration. But his having it also would not have left him free from a possible frustration in future. No, that's it. That he realizes when he makes a little reference to the center inside. When we put this into the inner center, it says, yes, what do you want? Why do you want? It's just like a monitor, quiet monitor who is not a dictator. This is not mind. That will be, if you really put, it will come and talk to you in the mind. But that's the soul. Right? What do you want? And why do you want it? Suppose you got it, then what?
Well, Socrates.
Well, then that means this is indirect impression, not direct working of the psychic being, but this is really its percolation into either your intellectual being, emotional being, or vital being, wherever your trouble happens to be. You see? So you can consult. My point is that it's not so mystic and so difficult as people think at first sight. Now, if you are open to yogic life, or if you have an aspiration for inner life, then generally when you sit in meditation, you try to retire into that heart center. You try to close off, shut off, or withdraw from all outer activities. All these threads of consciousness that are spread out, you pull back. Pull back into the heart. And from the surface of the heart activity, you go inside deeper. And when you go deeper, then you quietly come to a center or a plane where everything is peaceful. And yet it is not inactive. It is something that wants perfection, something that aspires with a flame of will. That is an activity of the psychic being which you feel. The complete peace, a retirement from outer activity, existence of peace around, and also an experience of a flame of aspiration. Now, aspiration can take thousands of forms. The form of aspiration is not fixed. Aspiration is a function. That's all. It's a flame, and that flame can take today one form, tomorrow another form. Every hour it can change its form because aspiration is not fixed. It will change according to your need, inner need. The being will feel the need and give the aspiration, take the form of aspiration there. The fire flame will go on changing according to the need of the individual nature. So, if you experience the flame pure, something in the being that wants to become, not to have something, no suggestions, no ideas, no thoughts, no disturbance, but in the peace, a settled will, a settled aspiration, a settled movement of consciousness which like fire burns upwards like that, you see. It doesn't care whether it is fulfilled or not. It is only satisfied with being.
Yes.
Yes, that's all. It might say, I want peace. Or it might say, I want to surrender. Or I want divine love. Or I want, purity. Or control. Or if it has noticed something in the nature, it might direct the whole flame to control in the nature part. You see?
Yes.
It will be 1,000 forms. I'm illustrating only the forms, which is not material. Point is the flame. Well, you put yourself in the flame and remain in the flame. You are contacting your psychic being, very, very direct. Only it will come out in pure form when your nature part also allows it to come in ordinary life afterwards. In the waking consciousness, when you are dealing, this is at the time of meditation I'm referring to.
Yes.
Yes, but in ordinary life, when the nature part, your mind, your vital being, your emotional being, always says, I want to do, but what does it want to do? Then first it may not come because the habit is not established. Old habits will go on for some time. But if constantly the seeker makes a reference to the inner center before doing anything, deciding, or before taking a step, or before even mentally acting, he will have a guidance. The psychic being find that now there is time. So every time, whatever you do, well, there will be always the monitor coming in and telling you, no, this is good, no, yes, it is all right, this is not all right. Confide, feel that inside. And you will know that it's not mind. Mind also does it. Egoistic mind also does it. What it doesn't like, it always throws out, is it not?
Yes.
Yes, that is not the guidance. This is a very impersonal and a superior kind of guidance which you feel it's a reality or it's, the truth of its existence by the authority which it carries with it, you see. There is a different way in which it deals with the nature part, and you know that this is not mind, because mind acts on its own previously received impressions, opinions, ideas, and vital behaves on the basis of likes and dislikes and attachment and hopes and depression and so on. So there also there is acceptance and rejection and a habit of dictating to the man, not giving guidance, carrying by an impulse or carrying by a suggestion. But this is, as it were, a superior monitor being coming and telling you, giving a guidance like somebody, a good well-wisher, you see, and who is very impersonal. If you don't do it, he is not insulted. He doesn't mind. If you don't do, all right, it's your chance. It is as it were you stand to lose, something like that, you see. Yes, it is such an impersonal guidance. It carries the voice of authority within it, you see. And that is how gradually it takes the charge of the whole nature part. So then whatever the mind does or whatever the vital does is not done without consulting and without its guidance. That's how it takes the lead in nature.
Where is the place of what the Christian teachings call conscience? Where is this? How does this fit in?
Conscience is 9 out of 10. Conscience refers to ethics or morality. And that is doubly connected with on one end it's connected with the vital. And on another is connected with the heart center, emotional center. You see, more often it should be the heart center. But because man seeks guidance in conduct, therefore it has to connect itself with the vital. And that appears that introduces an element of uncertainty in the decision of the so-called conscience. You see, the conscience is a representative of the psychic being, in fact. It is the representative of the psychic being, temporary center, so to say, thrown out on the emotional or on the vital level to guide conduct. It is psychic being indirectly acting, you see. But the difficulty in the conscience is that to keep the conscience pure is not simple, because all the subconscious preferences of the vital or movements which one likes in the mind, they come and try to represent themselves as if they are the voice of the conscience. And many good people even get deceived because they think this is the guidance of the conscience, but it's not. Also,
Being and the soul are the same thing.
same
I
thing,
think.
yes, that is.
You differentiate between the spirit and the soul.
Well, spirit is, I don't know about the Christian definition, you see, because yes, the Christian definition of the spirit is something like the Brahman of India, as far as I know. No, something like the Brahman, infinite. Yes, the infinite.
But then there's what they call the human spirit, which is supposed to be one fragment of the infinite, or one projection,
Yes, that's
or the monad.
a way of putting it is very, very, very wrong and creates misunderstanding and I think, wrong conception, because it's dealing with a plane of consciousness where the mental definitions have very little relevance, you see. For instance, this saying that human soul is a portion. No, it's not a portion in the sense of a fraction, you see. It's not a portion in the sense of a fraction at all. It's the whole of the divinity, the whole of it. It is by self-determination that the divine reduces its proportion. But it's nobody's dictation, it's no separation involved at all. There is no division. And I illustrated when we were talking about life divine. that if you take a, what is it called, this glass, this, what is it called, this
Magnifying glass.
magnifying glass, and take the sun's rays and concentrate it on a small needle-like point, you will say it is a portion of the sun. It is the sun itself. Sun itself, absolute. There is no real difference at all. It is sun.
So we are like each
Yeah,
beam of sunlight.
exactly, whole of the sun. That's it.
Each beam carries the whole.
Yes, whole sun. It must. That is the real basis in which you have to think about the distinction between self and, you say, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and so on. But people don't understand, and they have religious credo and fixed idea, and they go about like that. This is the realm of the infinite. You see, the logic of the infinite and the logic of the finite are two different logics. They are not the same logics.
And what did they ever do with the word Holy Ghost? What's it supposed to mean? What's the Holy Ghost supposed to be anyway?
It's a supreme being, perhaps, this divine consciousness.
The Holy Ghost is
Yes, it is something of the omnipotent divine, if you like to call
the
it.
Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Yes, the Son is the representative in the human being, the human soul, self, as he was calling.
Yeah.
Atman, as they say.
Over self, but it's
Atman is the Son. And
Yeah,
Holy
right.
Ghost is the supreme or the omnipotence. And the Spirit came down, they say Spirit came down on Christ, is it not? Yes, yes, Holy Spirit. Well, that is the Brahman, you see. It is difficult unless one has some mystic line of experience, you see. Yeah, if you fix it in mind, it loses all its in.
over self. I think Shriravendo talks in the over mind, the supermind, the
Yes, we have gone through it at great length in Live Life Divine, so it's a technical subject, and then not easy to understand unless you know the whole vision, you see. So you take the whole, then only you put over mind in its proper place.
If this is too personal, I wish you have your feeling of it and obligation for this record. In your long association with Sri Aurobindo, what do you consider to be one of the most valuable, valuable to you in that contact?
The contact itself is valuable. There can't be anything more valuable than the contact.
No, there's not.
Yeah. The most valuable thing is his contact. I consider that as the most valuable privilege. People who have an idea that when such a great privilege comes, they are not fully conscious. Fortunately for me, I was conscious. That is the only good point you can say in my favor. That I was conscious about the rareness of the occasion and its value. I don't think so. It's quite normal. What is there? I couldn't think so. That's all. Why, I don't know myself.
Well, you have brought to this consciousness and this contact years of training and discipline before you came into his presence, so that you were fairly prepared.
Perhaps, I don't know. I am not consciously prepared, but I happen to take that view without my being either wise or anything about it. I simply automatically took that stand. I don't know why. It was good on the whole, not bad. To appreciate greatness for a long time is difficult.
Yes.
As they say, that no hero is a hero to his valet, you see. You know that?
Yes.
Yes, that's it. A hero is not a hero to his valet. Because valet thinks he comes and he's tired or he lies down and he eats like me, and so what more? People look upon him though. as if he was something more. And he always loses the benefit of the contact. Baroda, yes. That is when I was in high school and I saw him first, not met him. My brother met him. I didn't meet him, I saw him. I attended lectures, 3 or 4 of his in Baroda, when I was in the last class, matriculation class. About nationalism, that was nationalist
But that had
politics.
an effect even then.
Yes, it had.
Contact, are they not? They're more than an ordinary contact because it's an inner contact, isn't it?
Yes, I no. The first it was an inner feeling, and it became a contact through my brother first, and then directly when he started the Arya publishing, I ordered it from college, and that is first direct contact, and more direct when I went in 1918 to see him. You see. But I had felt that when I had seen him in Baroda, something that that almost as if I knew him or that I could approach him and always so to reclaim sort of
His short teacher,
Lele, yes,
Lele, transferred a state of consciousness
to him, yes.
did Aurobindo, did his yoga work the same way too? In other words, as he took his disciples, he didn't transfer what his
Yes,
disciples
he is
the
all
same
the
way?
time giving, even now he is giving. If you receive here, you will get his consciousness. Sure,
Well, I know,
as sure as anything. You see, that consciousness has nothing to do with time and space, one thing.
yes, I know that.
It's a truth consciousness. And it has established its relation with the earth consciousness. So anybody who is opening will be in contact. You see? And it can't be given like that, you see, because where it will be put, the vessel must bear, otherwise it might break. So, you see, you have only one instance of dawn, but that's nothing. I have seen 100. You see, so that the vessel must be ready. If you put it like that, it might crack. So, it's not to be put, but it is at your disposal. And to the extent you can take, it will simply come like that. It will come down immediately. Only that for which one is ready will come. Generally, because it is self-adjusting. It always adjusts itself to the man's need and capacity both.
Purani, in one of the books, it showed that Aurobindo, when he followed the guidance of his teacher, but his experience wasn't anything that his teacher expected.
No,
Nor
that's
did
Lele.
he
That is Lele.
No.
That is Lele.
Nor
You see.
did-
Yes.
Nor did he
Yeah.
expect it.
Yes. It suddenly came. He said, Nirvana walked into me. That's how he said about it. And I was not prepared. Nirvana walked into me one day, he said. And then I understood this is Nirvana. That's all. And that on that he based up afterward the further development of the yoga, that Nirvana was not the end, but was the beginning only.
Well, it was interesting when his teacher came back about a year later,
Yes.
asking if he was doing in the morning and evening, and
Yes.
he just
Yes.
didn't say anything to him. He was doing
Yes.
it all day long.
Yes, that's
I
right.
thought that was well expressed.
Yes.
Another question. When you are in the witness consciousness and you are conscious of what's going on down here,
Yes.
is this concentration when you're conscious on two?
Yes, you are in the witness consciousness.
But
What
you're
you see
conscious of this,
is your nature part, your own nature part.
but you're conscious. It's
Yes. It's a double consciousness, yes, a dichotomy of consciousness in which one part is witness, another part is flowing or actively moving, and you are watching what is moving, that's all. But what you are is the watching, the witness. And that is the true center, true being.
Well, is there something going on up here by the witness too? In other words, there are times that it looks as though there's something going on here. And there's something going on here, and you can watch both of them.
Well, that might be that you watch at one plane, perhaps the vital current, and another plane, the mental current. You can feel them two different. For instance, when mental current might be felt as if it was going across your head or in your head, so to say, through or about or like that. And the vital might be felt here, going round the navel center, you see. So that the suggestion of the vital and impressions of the vital might be felt as if they were below. Unless in some people's case, the vital desires also come through the mind, in cases of people, you see. So
Well,
that
when I
what
first,
comes is not thoughts but impulses.
when I first started typing Dr. Chaudhry's tapes, it felt like a band
Mm.
was just tight around my head, holding it down because I was used to soaring,
Mm.
and I was just like I was being held down.
Mm.
And after I just said, do it. But I never will forget that sensation of being, was that was the mental plane, is that right? That
Well,
made this feeling
yeah.
of being held down?
I don't quite catch the nature of experience.
Well, I was transcribing the tapes, where before I would read and study and think and probably roam wherever I wanted to roam. But here I was held down into a definite plane. Now, whatever it was, I don't know, but it was a peculiar sensation. My reaction was that I was being held in.
Mm. But something was coming down to a dynamic mind only.
It
Something was trying
seemed
to
that it
come
was
down to a
mine.
dynamic mind and trying to make it work along some channel. That's
Mhm. But is what the question I was asking, was that mine?
yes, that is
Yeah.
dynamic mind. It's a mind.
Could be a result of concentration, see, couldn't it?
Mm.
It didn't
Could
feel
that
like
be,
it.
oh,
It felt like mine, and this is what I was trying to get at, is this, I'm trying to identify the planes. And this felt like mine, and that's what I was asking, was this mine? The terminology.
When you get the plate on tape on yoga, you will get these divisions very clear. You have made very clear and at length, sufficient length. We have dealt with and repetition perhaps also.
almost like currents, we might say, that
Yes.
go at different,
Yes.
like
Yes. Yes. Yes.
bands of current.
Yes. That's how one feels when one, detaches himself either or goes into the psychic being. Then he can't feel that it is he and this and that sort of thing. He thinks something is happening in him and so on. You see, he doesn't appropriate everything and say this is my and this and that and so on. He says what is going on. Then it is as if something was going on in some room or some place and so on. Like that only he feels. He doesn't feel that he says, oh, this must be cleared like that, you see, or this must happen. Well, then in that case, one has got the witness attitude fixed, so to say. Then he is fixed in the witness attitude, and then he would not be easily ruled by his nature. So nature may try to rule now and then, but still, in the major movement of his nature, he will be, controlled by the witness consciousness. And the witness consciousness has the power not only to witness but to govern ultimately. You see, so a certain thing it can always hold back. Merely by separation, he can govern. Even by merely separating itself, the nature will lose its force. Its push is completely taken off.
Since you've been talking to us, I have an entirely new understanding
Yeah.
of the vital and the
Oh, these
different planes.
Mhm.
Different planes.
now, what is this witness? Is this the psychic being?
No, witness is the representative of the psychic being in one sense, but it's not the psychic being. Witness is the representative of the cosmic being, you see. He is the witness of the whole universe. Only he watches at one place in individual consciousness, but he is really cosmic.
It's really personal.
Absolutely. That is its great power. Because he represents the universal consciousness, you see. Only the individual does not easily widen out into universal at once, and so he thinks this is my witness consciousness. Well, that's not wrong, but it doesn't belong to anyone. It is a witness consciousness only, and it witnesses 1,000 points. From the cosmos, it's witnessed the whole universe, even matter and life and all is being witnessed by the cosmic being. You see, the Purusha.
Could you tell me if when Socrates speaks of his monitor, and monitor stayed with him all his life?
Yes, demiurge, is it not?
Is that
Demiurge, yes. Yes, a feeling of a being behind. It may be his psychic being. It may be some, feeling of an oversoul or feeling of a psychic being. Some guidance, which was not mental, which was not vital. Yes, I think it refers to that.
uh,
I should think so.
excuse me, his disciple wrote this
Mm.
beautiful treatise on this death,
Mm.
and that the argument that goes on for
Yes.
3 days before he takes this.
Yes, I read Kritos, no? Kritos. Yes, I read it.
Yeah.
I read it.
It's most beautiful.
Yes, it's nice.
I tried reading it at Easter time. It's just again this year.
It's nice. Kritos dialogue, I remember.
To venture into outer space, would you say that would be helpful in developing cosmic consciousness?
Yes, partly in the sense that man's, being limited to earth consciousness, the limitation will be broken and man will feel that even physically is wider than the earth. That's a good gain.
Become more aware of the divine order of the universe?
Well, that doesn't matter, but he will widen himself. Well, that might open out into we don't know what, but it's a good gain. Each point of spirit, conquest of the spirit on man over matter, is a gain of the spirit. If only man will know how to use it. But even then, even if he doesn't know how to use it, it is a gain of the spirit of man over matter, you see. So it's a good conquest of spirit over, you can call it inconscience. It's an extension of his realm, you see.
Especially if he approaches it with a certain amount of humility and reverence or for the mystery of it all.
Yeah, I think most of those people who do it have a psychological, a state which protects them, I think.
Which one? Protect them.
Protects them. They do realize what it is, I think.
Of course, they claim the Russians don't believe in anything.
Oh, yes. No, but when they go, they get into the mood all right. You see, mind declares one thing, when situation comes, heart at once comes out and you can't put down the dictate of the inner being.
I think that's a wonderful statement. It's true. You make a noise when the chips are down.
It would be hard to do something like that without faith.
Yes. No, man immediately feels that he is before some immensity, you see, that he is facing the unknown and the unknowable.
And that in itself,
And there he feels that he is small.
that in itself is a concept.
Though he is undertaking a big thing, but he knows that he is small. Then the enormity of that thing and his smallness becomes, and that puts him in the mood of receiving some good help.
The psychic being are two different.
Not two different things, you see. The witness is a plane of consciousness which connects you with the universal. Psychic is the place of the consciousness where your whole individuality can be centered. In the Purusha, you can widen out into the cosmic.
I remember you explained that too.
Yes, yes. In the witness, you widen out gradually into the cosmic consciousness. Whereas in the psychic, you transfer the control of nature to the psychic because that is your true personality, true being. And the psychic is connected with the universal because psychic is always surrendered to the divine. And when psychic surrenders to the divine, the first thing that comes to it is the universal aspect of the divine. unless it is making a choice and says, no, I want to connect myself only with the transcendent supreme personality, like a devotee to the Lord and so on, then it might overpass the cosmic formula and directly approach the transcendent divine personality like the Purushottam, the divine as the personality, super person, and give itself up to him, and then accept or take back what the Supreme gives him as his task rather than go through the cosmic, you see. And the divine may give him the task to fulfill something in the cosmic being. Then he might establish a relation with the cosmic consciousness. For the individual, it's open to have a direct access to the transcendent consciousness. For the Purusha consciousness, well, it's an opening to the cosmic consciousness.
What do they mean by this psychic being coming forward or coming?
That is what I explained to her just
Oh.
a few minutes back. Yes.
I asked the same thing last night, and I can still not sure that I understand it.
That when the mind is in question, mind is in a doubtful state, or mind is indecisive or unable to decide between two alternatives, or when mind is depressed because it has failed in doing something, or vital is depressed because it didn't get what it wanted, then it gets frustrated and gets into a mood of, introspection and depression. And then at that time, if the man has the wisdom to refer to the inner being and ask a question whether this is right and why should I have done this and have I done this right, and whether it was correct on my part to have done this. Well, then the inner guidance can come like some monitor or a well-wisher who comes and gives the advice. And that is the psychic being now and then being consulted. Well, if you can make that constant, the psychic being will come to the front.
Oh,
If you make constant reference only to that and act only according to that, think only according to that, feel only according to that, act only according to that, then that's a psychic being.
To the front means the front of your life, where it's
Yes, front means front of nature,
where you folks are
guiding nature. Yes, very often. Yes, yes.
I didn't either. It bothered me.
And it's the characteristic is not difficult because anything that does not connect itself with truth or with right or with the aspect of the divine or realization of the truth or the truth of oneself, God. Well, it's not from the psyche. When it entangles you in the outer, or in attachment or in things and worldly things or life and so on, it is not directly from the psychic being. Psychic being main purpose is to lead this whole nature part to the divine. Its main business is that. How to lead this mental ego and stupid human mind and this restless vital to the divine. It is always trying, like as I told you, like a fisherman who has thrown the line, you see, and it's angling all the time. And he's throwing the bait, but this nature won't take it generally. You see, avoid the psychic being because one feels satisfaction in one's own self.
Would that be the equivalent then of asking your motive? Why did you do this? Was there any personal gain in it for you? I mean, when you ask yourself those questions,
Yes,
that's
yes.
a psychic being.
Yes, it will be you see, you can also put those questions through mind, but then mind must not have its own likes and dislikes. Generally, if you do it only with intellect, the intellect has its own interest in the sense of its own limitation, you see. And
In our training, so often in Christian, it's what is your motive in doing the thing. If
yes,
your motive was nothing but to help yourself, not to help yourself, or to do good or whatever it was, so when you consult the motive and you look to see whether you have any personal gain in it, and try to get a single good motive. This is a working of the psychic being, is it?
it can be, but it's not 10%, not 10% necessary. This is an individual thing, you see, and you train yourself to first introspection by watching the movement of inner being, and trying to see who is taking the lead in the movement, my mental movement, vital movement, emotional movement, or dealing in life. Who is taking the lead? What is guiding? Then you might notice that only habit is guiding, custom is guiding, fixed idea is guiding. Yes. Then the all the dealing must be as far as possible alive. Alive means conscious, conscious of it's being related to the truths, being related to your search for the divine. So that in the things that are done, you have to try to be conscious of how far that relates it to the divine. It may be very ordinary work, but still the connection must be with the motive, with the purpose, with the aim that one has in life. Whether this is contributing to my movement towards the divine. Psyche being generally, when it comes and is consulted, generally establishes a condition in which one will be made to seek the divine. Because that is the highest truth and that is also highest fulfillment. The psyche comes for that only. To fulfill the divine in the individual, you see. Conscience can represent the psychic, but not a not a conscience, that is fixed, but conscience that can be evoked. You see, that can be consulted when necessary. Not a fixed vital attitude, because that is not conscience. That's a wrong and sometimes very vitiated form in the vital, in the conscience. You see.
What I was meaning is more the way Alice Bailey
Conscience can come to the individual, conscience can come to the individual like a voice, like a value, as they say in modern language, value. Value means this is right, this is true, this must not be, this ought to be. Something from inside, without logic, without any outer paraphernalia. When consulted comes with that decision, well, that is the value centric voice, and that is a guidance which can be from the psyche. 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, right? When it has nothing to do with any personal thing, you see. Yes. Otherwise the vital says this ought to be, this ought not to be, which is different. Isn't it? Yes. When it is consulted on a point of this, doubt or point of hesitation or uncertainty, and when consultation is made, and when it comes out with that fiat, well, that is a conscience through which the psyche being dictates its guidance.
In your development of the spiritual life, I'm thinking of real spiritual life. Well, I mean, you're not seeking anything from any other motive but that unity. As you progress, do you think that you need the help of any individual to help you, or do you think that if you are open enough and your whole being is attuned enough that you can walk a pretty straight path with the guidance that you're given through the universal consciousness and transcendent consciousness pretty much by yourself? Or do you think you have to?
Well, one can do, I don't say, because theoretically there is nothing impossible, you see. In theory you can always say that it is quite possible. Now, whether in a particular case it is probable or possible, I don't know. That's difficult to say. Theoretically, yes, one can, if he has the faith, if he is sincere, if he has a constant aspiration, he certainly can have his guidance. Now, how many can have such a guidance, I don't know, because it is not easy to walk single-handed in the path, you see. You require somebody who has known the path, and also you have to choose your paths. There is not one path. There is not one path, and that is exactly what I have been sometimes telling, that the path leads to a goal, and then it varies because the object of approaching the goal has to be decided.
Yes.
See, you men approach the goal with different motives, and therefore their path becomes different immediately. See, if your attitude is a world accepting attitude, you accept the world as that of the divine, then your path will be one way. If you say no, this world is eternally condemned to remain ignorant, then your path will be different. You'll be world shunning path, world accepting path, isn't it? So you see, people do not think seriously when they say, "Oh, everything is the same." It is not the same. You see, everything can't be the same. You understand? It's very simple. According to what you want to do with the ultimate objective will depend the road that you take. You will take that road or that path which will satisfy the motive for why do you want to reach the truth. What would you do if the truth came to you? You see? So that then it makes a difference in the approach, in the attitude. If you say no, nothing more than mind is possible for man, then you will only confine yourself to mental effort. Then you can say charity, goodness, piety, whatever you can do, and so on. That will be a circle in which you will say, "This is my fulfillment. This is the highest I can do. Nothing more can be done." And there are people who do like that.
But if you have surrendered and you're only an instrument,
Yes, no, but
what message would you give if you said, "What are you going to do with the truth?" You don't know what you're going to do with it.
yes, first to attain, is it not?
Yes.
Yes. So, and then when you attain, you think that you will go with a tabula rasa. Very rare.
What?
You go with your mind. You go with your being as it is.
Oh, no. It would seem to me that
It is not possible for a human being, this I can assure you, that no human being approaches as if he had nothing. He has a mind. He has a mind. He has a vital being. And whatever he gets will come back to him through that medium. So what he has to do is to train those instrumental parts not to come in the way first. If he wants that the divine directly should guide him in that case, you see, to prepare the nature itself. That is why Sherando insists on transformation of nature. That as it is, human nature, even if the divine was attained, it will not be able to manifest and express it. It won't. It will express a deformation or a change, something coming through. It will come through. Nothing, not that it will do nothing, but it will not be in its utter purity. And if you want to do that, transform the human nature. Before that, it will not be able to manifest itself perfectly. So that introduces the element, you see, because you surrender to whom? To which aspect? One can surrender to an intellectual idea. One can surrender to a social concept. Many people do actually surrender, isn't it? So.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Holy Spirit when you said, "What would you do with the truth if it came to you?"
Yes.
Well, I would think if the truth in all of its fullness came to you, you would just do whatever.
Yes, truth requires a channel or for its expression without deformation or without change. And this channel now is, well, you can say tuned to egocentric movement or to an imperfect movement. To always say this is possible, this is not possible. It is subject to 1,000 limitations of which man is hardly conscious. Thousands of limitations, you see. Mind has its own ideas along which it is always thinking. Standards of life are there which it says this is correct, this is right, which is all temporary and has nothing to do with the truth. Nothing to do with the truth. But it's a working truth for some condition of plane of consciousness. So you can't say that you can knock out everything. No. So to knock out from oneself and establish some other poise, well, that is itself good part of sadhana, good part of work, of spiritual life. True surrender comes very late.
I should think it would be very late.
One begins with an idea or with an aspiration which is genuine and sincere. And it is a good beginning in that sense. If it is from the heart and from the mind or from the vital and sincere, that's a good start. But to carry the whole process through means being conscious. You see, somebody said that I have completely surrendered. So mother asked him, what have you surrendered? Says myself, but you do not know your whole self. That self which you know, you begin to surrender. Yes, that part of waking condition. Waking state, you surrender. But there is lot of subliminal self and periphery of the whole being is there, and the inner being is there, and then you get in, then you say, oh, there are so many things, and they have all to be well set right, and how to do that and bring them in a line. That would be a first problem. The problem will be to persuade those parts also to see the necessity of surrender, so that it is a process of self-awareness, and then in that self-awareness to establish the attitude of surrender. The more you become aware of yourself, perhaps you think that this is a good part and this is a good thing, and it's better to retain it, because this is more than what the waking condition is, and it has greater powers, greater capacities, greater knowledge. So it is not as simple as it looks.
Oh, no, no, it isn't. One question too, in Life Divine, when I was putting down that reference that you gave me, it meant there was a question. How it's the way you interrogate this subliminal mind. And Urban says if you interrogate it properly, it's a good guide.
Yes, it is a mixture of truth and darkness. You see, truth and falsehood, both means light and darkness.
Yes.
And but it is an extension of man's waking consciousness is much widened by contact with the subliminal. So the subliminal can act as a connecting link between the individual and the cosmic.
If you interrogate it properly.
If one gets into the subliminal self with the proper attitude and doesn't get deceived by the powers which the subliminal has, it's a wide range. It's a range of mind, range of sense, a range of action. And in that one is to put himself back and surrender to the divine. And take the right attitude also there inside. And that offers difficulty.
What did Buddha teach his disciples? Do you understand it? And
we had
taught today.
We had about 3 lectures on Buddhism here.
I mean, in reference to one thing though, in reference to concept of God, or did he teach a concept of
No,
God?
Buddha never taught any God. Only he was made God by his followers.
Well, what was he teaching? The cosmic mind or cosmic consciousness?
No, mind, mental consciousness. Depend upon mind. One, intellect is the instrument of attainment. Training your mind, concentrating and making.
But what was the ultimate? What do you mean by nirvana?
Nirvana is probably a state which he never described. He never described it clearly. He never gave any description of it. He said that you get into a condition which I can't say anything about, where these things don't exist as you feel them. That's all. It's a very negative description which he gave, and therefore his disciple had always difficulty in.
So he translated it as annihilation of consciousness, wasn't it?
I think so. It is annihilation by the meaning of the word itself. It is annihilation.
Personality.
Yes, annihilation of ego, annihilation of being, in fact, extinction, self-extinction. That would be really the meaning. But there are 19 schools of Buddhism, and they each differ in their idea, and they refuse to admit any agreement on that.
They differ completely on what the goal was itself.
No, what the meaning of the goal is, what is nirvana itself. In fact, as I told you, every 100 years there were a council of Buddhist leaders, religious leaders. They met and they decided their religion, and
they tried to reach a new agreement.
They tried to codify whatever was current in that time. 3 times the council met, 100 years after. One was in Kanishka time, one was in Ashoka time, and one was before that, you see. Immediately after his death, 5 years after his death.
And so they never did reach an agreement.
One, they had like that changing agreement, you can say. That is what Tripitaka is. You see, Tripitaka is a collection of the dispensation arrived at by his disciple immediately after his death and afterwards. You see, three councils, three big sessions.
Well, some, by that analysis of his concept of, well, the ultimate reality is not being
There is no ultimate reality. That's what he says.
no ultimate
Hmm.
reality.
That is-
By that token, some have said that Buddhism is not a religion.
Yes, it's a way of life, they say. It's not a
Way of
religion.
thinking, but
It's neither a philosophy also. It's not a philosophy.
nor a religion.
Huh?
What is it? It isn't a philosophy, it isn't a religion.
No, it's a way of life, way of thinking. You say that, well, I just want to live a good life, or what is to be done. Then he says, concentrate your mind on this, have good motives, and then retire into your being by refuse all the acceptance of desire that comes into you, first of all, to get rid of suffering. And then you change your mind in such a way as to reduce your activity gradually, till you retire into your being and you get into a condition which is indescribable, unknowable to the mind. Not that it is void of content, perhaps there is something, but he never described anything about nirvana. He didn't speak anything.
So how did he ever get so many followers if he could not use this
Well,
term?
he had a powerful personality.
Yeah, it's
Yes, and then the result you don't see that Buddha himself was accepted as God.
but I mean, after he went on, how did it manage?
Well, you can realize from the fact that his followers made apotheosize Buddha,
Or
made a
maybe-
god out of him, and put him in the center of their effort. Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. That's how they said.
So they worship Buddha.
Yes, exactly what he never wanted, but that is what happened. So his very, the path that he pointed out overlooked some human, nature's need, I think. It overlooked the great need of human nature. First, by overstressing suffering, trying to make out as if suffering was the center of all life and that was around which life was moving, which was not true. Suffering is there, nobody says no to it. But suffering is the essence of life. It's not right. It's a truth, but when you stress it too much, yes, there is sufficient compensation. Otherwise, people would be committing suicide by the hundreds every day.
In other words, he didn't see any joy in life.
Yes.
Didn't see anything in this world that brought joy.
Yes, probably because he felt the suffering of other people so acutely that he couldn't perhaps feel that there was a joy in life.
Isn't that a danger of most any spiritual teacher that the worshippers make him into a god?
Well, that only points out to a need of human nature that they require somebody who represents the highest to them. And what will represent the highest to them will depend upon who wants to see the highest. If he is greedy, he will find some guru who promises fulfillment of his greed, and that guru will be the highest to him.
No, I probably didn't say what I meant. I noticed it in Christian Science Church one time. One of the people there felt that Mary Baker Eddy was the one that was promised.
Mm.
And here you say they make Buddha.
Mm.
And some the followers, the teacher themselves didn't want to be put in that position, but the followers deify them. Is that true of most? Is that a danger?
Yes, yeah, that is, well, you can say it is a danger also, and it's a necessity of human nature from another point of view. They can't do without some guidance like that. They feel at least anyway. Because those who deified him were not all devoid of common sense. I should think so. I mean, it was not a mass that came and said, now make Buddha a god. You see people who thought that that idea had some truths, or thought that way the Buddhistic following can be kept together, whatever the attitude from which it came. But it wasn't a result of superstition only. I shouldn't think so. These things are very subtle and they have deep roots. This laughing childishly is only shows that one doesn't know what he's talking about. Modern people, some of them thinking that the followers were all blind and they have now discovered the intellectual being. Well, they are blind in some other respect. They are making a god of atom bomb, perhaps. You see? So, they are blindly worshipping something else. What I mean is that the attitude which the followers of Buddha had towards Buddha, modern people may have towards something else.